Hi, my name is Holger Hornes. I'm the manager of Intelligent Systems at Pepperl+Fuchs. In this video, we will cover another configuration example for our safety controller. In this example, we will configure a system for 3 simple e-stops, very similar to our first example video that we provided. The difference is that in addition to having a reset input, we also want to utilize actually two of the outputs to provide feedback to the PLC. Now, feedback to the PLC could in fact mean that those outputs on the controller, those conventional outputs that is, could be tied into inputs on the PLC, and therefore the PLC would know about the state of the safety system. But what that also means is we could directly connect it to some sort of an LED, any type of low power device. For instance, Pepperl+Fuchs makes an LED cluster in an M18 housing that could easily be driven out of those signaling outputs. So with Simon Plus running, we'll start a new configuration by selecting the new icon. Once the information about monitor and bus window shows up, we type in our title. I call it e-stops with PLC feedback. I again select the hardware down here and then go to this tab to define the I/O. In this example, I have 3 dry contact e-stops, so the contact sets S1, S2, S3, S4, and S5, S6 will be checked off as safe inputs for dry contacts, and S7, S8 is going to be selected as a standard input or messaging output, since that's what we want to do. Also, unclick the check mark down here and acknowledge by hitting OK. We start the configuration by selecting an output device, for instance the stop category 0, the immediate stop, by dragging it from the device library onto the configuration window. This is where we drop it. And when the details window pops up, we type in a name and we select the output that is associated with this function. For my setup, OSSD1 is output 1, the physical output 1, that is ultimately driving the safety contactor that will then control the motor. No further changes to this window necessary. Next, we will put on our safety devices, our 3 e-stops. So we grab an e-stop symbol from the device monitoring section, and we call it e-stop 1. Select dependent with filtering and hit OK. Similarly, we will select the other inputs. Once the e-stops are defined, we need to add a startup function, and as I did not add any local acknowledgement, I will utilize the monitored start as a global function, and it's valid therefore for all 3 e-stops. Again, S7-2 is the contact on the hardware where the reset button is connected. So that deals with all the inputs. Now, we wanted to have 2 types of output signals. We have 2 outputs available, 2 conventional outputs available, and we're going to use both of those. The first one is an indicator that the system is released and ready to be reset. That's a nice piece of information for the PLC to know. And the second piece of information we want to transmit to the PLC is when the safe output is actually in the off state. So the motor is not running. Those 2 pieces of information we want to give to the PLC. The way outputs are controlled is by utilizing the the Edit Output Assignment window. And what we see here is a bunch of devices that are used for the configuration. So up here we see 3 devices, 3 symbols for the e-stop. Here is our safe output, and here's our reset function. Now everything else are internal state variables, and if you look over here, there is a little bit of an explanation. So for instance, this internal variable, this internal device S-16, is the color of devices yellow flashing, or there's a color of devices yellow. And if you remember that an e-stop that needs to be reset was in the yellow state. So therefore, when the configuration is resettable, that means that it is yellow. And so we can take an output and assign it to this particular internal variable. So I'm going to grab S71 from over here, and I'm going to add it to this internal state variable. That means as soon as S16 is true, the devices are yellow, my output S71, physical output on the controller hardware, will be activated. So that takes care of one. The second output that I have, contact S82, I want to use to indicate when the safety system is actually off. And if I scroll down, to somewhere this area, that was a little too far. Let's go a few clicks up. Then there is an internal state variable here that's called state of messaging output 1 inverted. So messaging output 1 follows the safe output. It is on when the output is on, it is off when the output is off. By selecting the inverted one, I get exactly what I want. When the safe output is activated, this particular messaging output is off, and when the safe output is deactivated, this particular messaging output is then on. So I'm going to go to my free output selection, grab this output and drop it right in here. Now I select OK, and nothing really changes on this screen, but when I download the configuration to the controller and run it, what I will see is that these 2 outputs are going to indicate if I'm in a resettable state or if the safe outputs are off. So now that we have this all done, we're going to again use the configuration checker to see if everything is good, and we can now download the configuration from the PC to the monitor. So now that we're on the diagnostics screen, it becomes a little more obvious how this works. So in this particular case, as you can see, there's only one yellow block, and because all the e-stops are reset, the signaling output that we associated to the contact S71 is on. We have only one yellow block. So if I hit an e-stop, now the whole system goes to red. There is nothing yellow. Therefore, S71 is off. Okay? It cannot be reset. I can only reset the system when the e-stop is pulled out and I reset the function. So everything now is green, therefore the ready to reset output is turned off, and because the motor is running, The second output that we utilize, S82, is also off. If we shut down the system, S82 just turned on, indicating that the safety system is not running, the motor is not running. I hope you found this configuration example helpful. Please watch our other videos discussing the Pepperl+Fuchs safety controller.